if I download Helium here, okay, so what we're going to do here is download Open Daylight, a manual download in the tarball. And this tarball is the same tarball that we're building the RPM out of. So it should be the same bits. It's just a matter of, is it being installed by the RPM and configured for System D to start and stop it with a non-root user, or are we using root out of root's home directory from a tarball? It's kind of the difference of what the RPM will do once we get these little, once it's working properly. Versus what we're doing here. Once we get Open Daylight extracted, we'll install the feature set that it needs to run, and then we'll start the server, and then we should be able to connect to it. So I'll extract Helium.
So when you install here, are you going to override the other install?
I've stopped the other install, so they'll sit kind of side by side on the system, but because the other one's not running, we can bring this manual one up. Yeah. Carafe is the ODL command line, right? You guys are familiar with ODL?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit, okay.
Not all that, but...
And so all you really need to do is jump in there and take that same feature set that's listed in the Puppet module and do a feature install on it.
Interesting. This is what I wanted to know from you, because the way I used to do, I go to the command prompt of ODL and enable the features one by one. So I was wondering how you are scripting it. I see.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Let's look at that. Real quick.
Yes.
So there are two ways that I have found to script this. One is using client and say like bin client and features install blah. And the other option that I have found is I don't remember the exact config file, but it has the features to boot on, and I'm going there and I'm appending those features, and Carafe does it as soon as it comes up. And I prefer the second way, actually.
Yeah, the second one that you talked about is the way that we're using to make that happen. Yeah. You'll see in the terminal, I'm looking at this template file. The templates org Apache Carafe features config ERB. Oh yeah, it says it at the bottom of what you see right now. And in the middle of that screen, it says features boot and it says features.join. That correlates to, in this file, so that features.join correlates to in the network or PP file in my TriStack module where we listed out all of those features. And so when Open Daylight starts, if you don't use the terminal to install, or if a feature is listed in that Apache features file, when Open Daylight starts and that feature is not installed, then Open Daylight will try and install it. So the features that's listed there has all the features we want, and so what happens is the Open Daylight RPM would get installed, and when Open Daylight is started, it would look at this features list that gets laid down through that template into that configuration file. Open Daylight would say, oh, these features aren't installed, and it would attempt to install them. And this is actually what we're having trouble with right now with the RPM, is that whether you use the terminal or whether you put these features into that configuration file, the logs for Open Daylight come up and say, I can't find that feature, I don't know how to install it. And so that's what Daniel's working through right now. If I go back to the network node now and run the installation on that feature list, once those features are installed, we can exit the Open Daylight command prompt there and start Open Daylight, making sure that we tell it to start with OpenFlow 1.3. and then Open vSwitch should connect to it. Hopefully, it won't make a liar out of me.
One thing that I have been fighting with is the proxy server, because these features, Karaf needs to go on the network and pull them in. So Palani, if you're gonna see the same problems as I have. There is a settings file that you need to drop in your directory that ODL creates, and basically it's where you go and you put your proxy settings for Java, and I think it's for Maven. I'm not sure. I can't remember the detail. I'm not a Java guy. And then, this proxy is being used. It doesn't matter what you have in your shell. It doesn't matter what you have anywhere. It needs to be in this settings.xml, and it reads it and goes and fetches these features. And I'm guessing that might be another issue for you guys if you're packaging Open Daylight. If someone has a proxy server, you need to somehow, they need to somehow configure it. And what happens with your RPM? It's going to be installed, but not going to work properly, I'm guessing.
I agree. I almost wonder too if it might not be a good idea to create a features RPM, where if you have extra features that you that you need to install, but you don't have access to get to the outside world, that you could install the Open Daylight RPM and then depend on or have the Puppet module for your OpenStack installation install a features RPM. And if it dropped those features into the M2 directory and could install out of there, that may be a possible workaround for the proxy problem that you're having, for the features problem that we're having with the RPM. This is the state of development that we're in right now. What I'm showing you here is stuff that we've kind of figured out and gotten working just in the past maybe month. Let's see. So at this point, the features are installed, and I've done this again in the command prompt so we can see kind of the process that's happening. But if we put it in that boot template, it will do it automatically instead of us having to log into Karaf and do it that way. Once those features have been installed, we can use bin start and the systemd script that we're putting through the RPM is just calling the start command, and then it's important to add -virt ovsdb and -of13 so that we're using we're communicating with OVSDB and we're using OpenFlow 1.3. This collection of commands is probably another patch that we could put into Genesis on how to manually set up ODL. So again, the important things there is the virt OVSDB and the OF13, so that we're talking OpenFlow 1.3 to OVSDB. So I've hit enter now, and OpenStack or ODL is running in the background. So at this point, we should be able to go and look at. I'm not sure if I need to restart Open vSwitch or not.
Shouldn't have to.
Yeah, let's see if he just connects. So if I now say OVS via CTL list manager, so what we want to see, and that's that the manager, that OVS has connected to its manager, ODL, and the status that we used before, the list manager, shows that properly. The other place that you see this, well, you don't see the status of the manager, but if you do an OVS via CTL show, you can see at the top of my screen now, it does show the status is connected. Yeah, so a second way that you can verify the status is in OVS VSCTL show, you can see at the top of your screen now that the manager is pointed to the .4 port 6640, which is what we configured with that Puppet module, the patch to QuickStack, and it shows is connected is true. So we see that OVS on this network node is now connected to ODL. And then I think if I connect to a compute node, we should see the same thing. Apparently OVS isn't installed there. So maybe something went wrong on my Puppet run. Oh, yeah, there's something obviously went really wrong on running Puppet. So I've got Puppet errors on that compute node. The idea would be, though, that you can see on my screen my right two tabs are compute 1 and compute 2, and so as the Puppet code reflected, we should be able to go to those two compute nodes and run the same command and see that OVS is connected to ODL as its manager. And then the networking tier and the compute tier, once both of those are connected to your ODL as the manager, then things would work. Your VXLAN tunnels would be established properly and your traffic would start to flow properly. In my experience with this, once I had Puppet running cleanly on all the nodes and OVS showing that it was connected to ODL as the manager, that the VXLAN tunnels started coming up and the traffic started flowing properly.